Well, we're delighted to have Smido back with us. No idea what's happened to Matty. Hopefully, he's still living and will join us by the end of the podcast. Shout out to everybody in the chat. We'll give you a shout out by name as the show goes on. Only one place to start. As I often say, Sheffield Arena in Sheffield, no less. Leigh Wood with a 7th round TKO victory over Josh Warrington. It was never really in doubt, to be honest with you. That's what Smido might tell you. Smido, I'm going to tell you something, right? I do worry about Leigh Wood's long-term health. I'm not going to lie. He takes a lot of shots. He fights like an absolute warrior. He struggles to make weight as well. But this is probably why you're with us tonight in episode 543. He has to be one of the most exciting fighters around at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's every time I come on, I say the list of fighters that I set my clock by on a Saturday night to watch is very, very small nowadays. Very small. You could probably count it on one hand. Leigh Wood's one of them, obviously with the Nottingham connection. But yeah, how he does it is quite amazing, really, to pull so many fights out the fire where he's been, banging trouble, particularly recently. The underdog on this run that he's been on since being with Ben Davidson, and not many of our listeners this evening, Steve, will want to give credit to that man, but I'm pretty sure you're going to have to. I mean, the run he's been on, again, underdog against all these fighters, behind, down against Conlon, behind against Warrington. Obviously, he had to come back for the rematch from Maurizio Lara and got that job done as well. I mean, yeah, it's a remarkable turnaround. I used to say these words about Josh Warrington a few years ago when I was more engaged in boxing and the boxing asylum, that the most improved fighter in the country. And I think Josh Warrington was that at one stage. I think improved probably the wrong word with Leigh Wood, but overachieving from where he was a few years ago, flitting around in Sheffield, down the way down the pecking order at the Ingle Gym, too far down for Leigh Wood, hence why he moved. But literally, and I know we joke every week, leisure centres. I have literally been to a leisure centre to watch Leigh Wood against some Brazilian that they got in on 2 days' notice in 2013. Pretty much he's never had. I think he might have been with Hennessy at one time, maybe not. And then he was basically promoting himself and selling tickets himself. And it was all late notice. And he's never really been a matchroom fighter, really. He certainly didn't come on board as one. That Reece Mould opportunity, I think, came around COVID time. He was in that golden contract thing that's, not really to do with matchroom that was on Sky. So if you'd have said to him, even 4 years ago that this was even a couple of the recent wins, never, win the regular title against Kanzu and knock Michael Conlon out, for example, in the 11th round or whatever it was, he'd have took that off you then. But there's so many notches to the story, and to have turned it around from where he was, because he ain't that young, and he wasn't that young when this run started, really. Kanzu was 2 years ago. He was 33 at the time. Like I say, never really had the backing. But he's got it now in terms of his fans, and I don't think there's and the entertaining fights that he brings. I think there's no choice but for someone to back him, i.e., Matchroom, which is great. But yeah, for him to, like I say, 4 or 5 years ago, you'd have said, where's Leigh Wood going? He lost to Jazza Dickens in that final of that golden contract MGK thing, whatever it called, and
MTK shout out.
Yeah, shout out to them. Jazza Dickens is, pretty talented himself at that level in that time. But Leigh Wood was a strong favourite to beat Jazza Dickens, and he got upset there. The first time really he ever stepped up at the Hull Ice Arena, another one where I was at. He got beat by Gavin McDonald. Didn't really, that was the first time he was really hurt. He didn't know what to do, and everything all unravelled there. I mean, we're going a long way back on Leigh Wood's career here, but I mean, yeah, last night we got the fight that we pretty much expected. Really, I mean, we expected Warrington to come out, get close, swing. We've seen it before with some success and a lot of degree of entertainment. I mean, I vividly remember, as will you, Steve, Warrington and Frampton basically going toe-to-toe after 15 seconds of their fight, like straight from the off. And Warrington tried to do that a little bit last night, but Wood wasn't for it. He didn't want to do that. He kind of had to. He was getting caught with shots all over, but we've seen that. He was put down flat on his back by Conlon early doors in that fight. And obviously we know what Lara did to him as well. So he's got that vulnerability, but he's got the the heart and the technique and the power to go with it. Because Leigh Wood, I mean, I've followed his career from early doors, given he was in the year above me at school, and he was never really known for his power early doors in bantamweight, and started at bantam, then super bantam, and obviously now feather. But I mean, this run he's been on since hooking up with Davidson for knockouts. All of his wins, I think, have come by knockout.
Why is he knocking people out all of a sudden, do you think?
Well, I think Ben Davidson's obviously an excellent operator, and that's why he's making him sit down on his punches, and he's really bringing that out. No, but in all seriousness, you are going to have to credit someone. He's obviously took a massive...
Leigh Wood.
Yeah,
no fucking Ben Guardiola.
Well, brilliant. Give it to Leigh Wood. Something has obviously changed. He's gone away from the Ingles, and it is obviously a different style, a unique style in Sheffield. He's come away from that. Wherever he ended up, he was going to probably fight differently. He's ended up with Ben Davidson. Some might give him credit, probably not the people on this chat, but yeah, last night he just couldn't get the space that he wanted early doors as Warrington was smothering him, and rightly so. I think that was the game plan that Warrington should have gone with and did. And yeah, he was landing them shots, plenty of hooks, even a couple of jabs from Warrington that we're not used to seeing. But yeah, he just eventually, Woods turned it around. He's pulled it out the fire again. I mean, the stoppage looks fine, pretty fine to me. You could probably see it either way. If I was a big Warrington fan, I would probably argue the other way. His body was stiff and his legs were all over before he even went down. So he was already all over the shop. He got up, fair play to him, but he was still wobbly. And, this narrative's come out about he was facing the wrong way from the ref. He was, to be fair, although turning around quite late on. The point of contention on the stoppage to me would be that it was because it was at the end of the round. That's why it's a debate. Would he have been able to recover and come out for the next round if he'd had a minute on his stool? Probably yes, he probably would. But if it was midway through the seventh and the punches that were landed, maybe 2 or 3 of them were probably unnecessary punches. No one's fault, but he was already kind of, the switch had already gone off, and Wood landed a couple of more punches for good measure as he was on the way down. But because it was the last 2 seconds of the round rather than halfway through, I think that's where the debate comes in. But another cracking fight for Leigh Wood, and you have got to get boxing is so shit at the minute. You've got to give credit. You've got to take it where you can. That it's not pay-per-view, although it is subscription, whatever. But he's fought 3 times in a year. They've all been pretty good fights. And, the Lara rematch, he did what he had to do in terms of getting the win. But fighting regularly in domestic fights, which we always promote on this channel, great stuff. Great stuff.
Absolutely, yeah, we do promote domestic fights indeed. Chris Butler says Wood's got 4 world-level wins now. Not many UK fighters have got that. Des made a comment as well. He said, Leigh Wood strikes me as a kid who isn't a long-range single puncher, but in close, short range, I think Leigh carries genuine power. Leigh is dangerous in the pocket, and you shouldn't punch with him. Don't be punching with him, Andy. That's the main takeaway there. What about the ref's call then? Smido mentioned it. I think given the timing at the end of the round, the referee could have been justified. I think that would have been the easy way out in letting him see the minute between rounds. I think because Warrington's fit and it was right at the end of the round, and I'm a bit of a Steve Schmoger character, I would have liked to have seen it carry on. What do you think?
Yeah, I take both points, to be fair. You could argue that because the way he got up, he was definitely on the skanky legs. He turned his back on the referee as the referee's trying to call him back into action or trying to kind of check him out. You could maybe see that. I can understand maybe people saying it's premature, considering that Josh, I would need to say, but I think everybody watching that fight would say that Warrington was well ahead. Even the scorecards proved that point. Could have given him every chance, but at the same time, it was a heavy knockdown. That said as well. But one thing I want to say, and I thought Smithers would have picked up on it. Smithers, you've watched him from the early doors. Have you ever, coming up through the ranks, ever seen Leigh Wood fight southpaw?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely not at this level, but yeah, certainly
exactly.
Yeah.
At this level, I mean, was the plan last night to come out there purely in southpaw to try and fuck with Warrington's method or whatever it was? I mean, Warrington came right out as a bull. Intensity was right up there. Wood, I thought, just couldn't cope the whole fight. As that wore on, it just looked like it was ebbing away from him. And as you say, the power in the end has pulled him out the fire. There's definitely shades of the Gatti about him, without doubt. But come on, we'll see what happened to Gatti at the end of the day, right? Wood has problems with people who kind of put the intensity on him. He struggles to cope from time to time, and he's having to pull it out the fire time after time with his power. And that shit ain't going to work when he starts to go up to 130, man. I mean, that's not going to work on the likes of a Navarrete or a Hector Garcia, possibly. I just don't understand why he went southpaw last year, because he was eating everything down the middle. He was wide open for every shot that he got thrown.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say, he was known even before he went to Sheffield and the Ingles. He was known as a silky boxer. He represented England. Didn't quite get it to that Olympic level, but definitely was a England international. And was slick. Always been slick. Even when he was 15, even when I was down at the gym. So yeah, he's definitely got that in him. Obviously, that was amplified when he went to Sheffield, because we all know that they switch it in as a default really for them guys. So yeah, he's got it in him, but it obviously didn't work out very well last night. And it's just crazy to think that that Leigh Wood is being talked about as a big puncher, and not just on last night. Obviously, we've got Conlon, Rees Mould, etc. Zan as well, the Chinese fella. Yeah, it's just mad, really. That if you'd have asked me that many years ago, how you see his career panning out, is he going to end up being a puncher? Absolutely not. You'd have said that. So there is, he's obviously made a lot of changes, and it is a big difference to go from that Sheffield setup. I know I've said it a couple of times, to somewhere else. Wherever you go from that Sheffield setup, it's going to be pretty different. From that slick. You could name them all, and to go from that to where he is now is pretty incredible, really.
Andy Baron Bedsores there says, what happened to Saved by the Bell end of the round, boys? Josh should have at least had the corner before either quitting or coming out for the next round.
That's only the last round, isn't it? I think it's only the last round that can save you.
You can't be saved by the bell.
Aye, until the 12th and final round. I think it's the 12th round. Once that bell goes in the 12th round, that's the fight over. So is that not right? I think that's right. Aye,
yep.
so
most commissions go by that, and sanctioning organisations.
That's how I understood it, at least. But no, I just felt him turning southpaw, because I was kind of sitting there watching it for the first round. I'm saying to myself, okay, that's interesting. And as the fight kind of like Grizzly Warren, I'm saying to myself, he's staying southpaw and he's eating every shot coming down the middle there. I thought he was running the risk himself of getting stopped in that as well. And fair to me, that was down to Leigh Wood pulling it out of the fire at the end of the day. We've seen it for time after time. When the chips are down, he digs deep and he can somehow pull it out of the fire, but he can't keep resorting to that, because the damage is going to be telling at this point as well. He's mid-30s now. Got to watch, man. He's got to watch. And as I say, you just don't know if the power, when he does go up in weight, it seems like it's inevitable. Is the power going to come up? Possibly. Is it going to work on these bigger guys who are going to be rehydrating, like maybe like in the mid 140s after 24 hours? You just don't know. Is it going to have the same effect? Is he going to be able to hold the same weight of shots off these 140 pounders once they've rehydrated after the punishment he's took? Don't know, because as I said last night, he was wide open for every shot that Warrington threw at him, and bigger puncher could have had him out of there.
I think, to put my fanboy hat away for the time being, you could see him. You all know where he's going for, where he wants to go for his next fight. It could be a cash out job, and it could end up with him flat on his back, to be honest.
You're going to go to Vegas when he ends up there, Smith?
No, Froch never made it to Vegas, did he? So I don't think Leigh Wood's going to make it there either. But no, I can see it being city ground, selling loads of tickets, quite possibly against Warrington, quite possibly at a higher weight class. Warrington's not the man to put him flat on his back, but that you could see that happening without being disrespectful. It's already happened within a fight against Conlon, and he got up to carry on. And Conlon ain't a big puncher. So
what do you do though? What do you do with him next? Actually, once he comes up in weight, because there's no like
Cordina maybe.
Yeah, I just think the weight's irrelevant, because I honestly think he's probably only got 1 or 2 fights left in him. So Warrington or Cordina or any of them.
Des says, he was dead at the weight last night. His legs gave up on him after 3 rounds. That's the way it looked to me. And yes. Warrington made a mistake, and he hammered him. And as Michael Thompson says, Andy, he kept Warrington's head at bay going southpaw. Maybe that was part of the plan. So there was some strategic thinking in it, even though it looked to us at the end like... what about the beginning of the 7th, actually? The referee, Michael Alexander, took a point away from Warrington. I don't know. I think he was trying to...
It was around the back of the head,
was it? Back of the head.
I think it was something like that. I thought you were talking about a head, but no, I didn't see... Well, I did see Warrington, obviously, when he was coming in, when they were grappling, the heads were quite close, that type of thing. I was going to say something else, actually, but I just went right out of my head, sorry.
No, you're okay. Mark Stanton says, have you been approached by Forge Stout yet for a sponsorship? They are everywhere you look in boxing. No, but we're happy to...
Well, I know. If you want to nip over to Doubles and Trebles on YouTube, but we're open for sponsors as well,
There you are, Smido, coming on for the spot. Hey, Smido, I defended you in the chat. They said he's here because it's darts season starting up again. I said, no, Smido's here for Leigh Wood. And I was wrong, Smido.
The darts final is on right now, and I'm not watching it because I'm speaking to you guys.
Who's in the darts final?
I think, is it Price and Humphreys World Grand Prix final, I think.
Oh, very good. There you go. World Grand Prix is going on. Go over and watch it, everybody, and leave us if you want to. Smido, you stick along around for as long as you want. I know you only saw the Wood fight, but we'll come back to you if you do indeed stick around. Dominic's with us as well in the absence of rapping Rob Kelly. Ben Russell threw in a question there. It was more of a comment, really, Dominic. He said, Inoue said Wood was the hardest puncher he's fought. I've seen this article as well. Apparently, before the Jamie McDonnell fight, Inoue brought Leigh Wood over. I'm not really sure what the crack was. He was very heavy, and he said that Wood could absolutely bang. You know, he was a puncher and he was a decent, big, strong fighter. So an Inoue endorsement for Leigh Wood, if nothing else, this weekend.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wasn't aware that that Wood had been over sparring with Inoue, and there's no question that the guy can really dig at 9 stone. But I would sort of endorse what Andy was saying about there being doubts about whether that'll translate up to 130 pounds. I would sort of, I don't think it'll be as effective up there. But yeah, I'll just start off, Steve, by sort of, I got a message from Rob saying he couldn't come on, and asking me what I fill in for him. Minus Rob's humor, of course, but
you're very early as well.
yeah, but he
I just fuel the YouTube haters. I'm only joking.
He left a voice note giving his breakdown of the fight, so I'll try and relay as best I can what he was saying. But Rob, first of all, didn't have too much of a problem with the stoppage. He thought the stoppage was fair enough, given that Wood nearly, as Rob put it, he nearly killed Mick Conlon, and that was a very scary situation. But the big thing Rob was saying as well was, I think the guys have touched on it already, the fact that he caught Warrington coming in with a southpaw right. It sort of it allows Ben Arcel, I know Andy calls him Ben Guardiola, I call him Ben Arcel. It allows him to sort of continue to claim he's a genius, and it sort of overrides the reality that the plan to come out southpaw. For the most part, it really did backfire. Quite considerably. I thought Wood had more success when he tried the box orthodox at Reigns in the centre of the ring. I know some of the guys in the chat there said that Wood was more effective up close because his legs were shot from the struggle of making the weight, and therefore he was safer and better, at close quarters. But there was a few rounds in the middle of the fight where I felt when he tried to keep it long and orthodox, he looked safer there to me. He looked a bit more comfortable. But it's Rob was pretty much adamant that he needs to get rid of Ben Davison moving forward, or moving sideways, or moving whatever direction to move in. But I, for my own opinion, I'm sort of with you, Steve. I felt the stop. I wouldn't push it too hard, but I certainly felt the stoppage was potentially the wrong call. The fact is that a lot of people, I think, seem to think that the big thing was when the bell sounded. To me, the bell looks to have sounded just after Warrington hit the canvas and before the count started. So therefore, the round had officially ended. Now, it's possible that the ref, may have, in the sort of hysteria of everything that was going on, he may not have fully clocked that the round was over. I think he probably did know the round was over, but I just think because it's a world title fight, a guy should be given every opportunity. And as I was saying to you earlier, I think if it could have turned what was already an excellent fight into something very dramatic in the next couple of rounds, if Warrington was trying to, sort of hold on and get himself back into the fight, because he was well ahead. There's no question about that. But as for what happens now, I think the Cordina fight is the if he does go up to 130, that's the most likely thing. But I wouldn't fancy him at all in that fight. I think Cordina would probably stop him. And then if he is it looks like it's not. It looks like it's a bad idea for him to try to stay at featherweight. what would he do if he stayed at featherweight?
Well, it's a shame because him and Lopez would be a good fight, I think.
It would be a good fight, but I think he would get knocked out in that fight, Steve.
He would, but he'd be good until he did.
It would be good until he did.
And you never know. You never know with him.
No, you're right. I think that's a good point. I think there's definitely he hits hard enough at that weight. And with the AVs that are reportedly getting into him after the weigh-in, he'll be strong enough. Maybe the guys want to touch on that. There's persistent rumors that they get him back to the hotel room after the weigh-in, and he gets the AV drip in him to strengthen him up. And I think I should say this. I don't really care. Like I just say it. He is, and he does come across like a very nice guy. But I would question where the knockout power has come from in latter fights, and not just the whole issue of AVs after the weigh-in.
Well, if he's going to get caught, he's going to get caught on an Eddie show, so at least we know that.
Yeah. I don't like to say it because
if he's been taking IV, that's against the you know what.
Yeah.
I mean, if you need an IV, you need to be in hospital. That is a cut and thrust of the matter. Mm-hmm. Too many of these DIY doctors and that on the side. That's how you get fucking. This is how fighters get caught.
And to be fair, we don't know 100% this is the case. Is that right, Dominic?
No, it's just rumors, but they're persistent rumors. Like they're. And
the rumor was that he wasn't feeling too hot after the weigh, and apparently he was on the verge of collapse.
Mm-hmm.
That's the rumor.
See, he did look in the face in the weigh, and I was just thinking about this earlier. Now, he did look quite ghost-like in the face, but I felt his midriff, his torso, everything that looked a bit healthier. But you can't really say. You're just looking at it at a distance, but it's sort of in terms of how easy it is to hit. That's a big concern. It looks worse because he has that mop of hair on his head, and every time he gets tagged, it sort of shakes about, and it looks probably worse than it is. But
yeah, I'm a fan of. I'm not saying this like being sort of funny or anything, but I'm a fan of fighters just shaving the hair off. David Lemieux was like that. He always had this big, massive mop of sort of like a Bobby Charlton comb over, and every time he took a jab off Golovkin, I remember it was flying about all over the place. And I think it could influence some, less experienced judges, maybe.
Yeah, that was in the Golovkin fight. That was the worst example. I think it was really glaring in that fight. And it was good. You could see it was sort of coming back round and almost getting in his eyes. I mean, you've heard. I think most of it. There's been stories in the past. When a fighter, I think before Calzaghe fought Lacey, Enzo Calzaghe at the pre-fight rules meeting after the weigh-in, Lacey was sporting a big beard, and Enzo forced him to shave it off. But
old-time trainers always would have done it back in the day, wouldn't they? Danny Williams, I remember, grew a big beard the once and they made him shave it off and all. I suppose it's much for gamesmanship as anything else, but Larry Merchant referred to it like maybe grinding away in the clinches at someone's eye. I don't think it would do too much damage, but it could be a factor.
Like sort of like making a cut worse and
yeah,
I sort of undermine a cut man's efforts to sort of clean up a cut, and it's you see that, but well, it's I thought you have to say it was a very good fight, excellent fight, and there's no question Wood, he can really dig it at that weight. I thought Warrington, I was impressed by him because he was denying. He looks to me like a fighter who he does the basics very well, but he looks like he's very, very good at following a game plan to the absolute, to the letter of what they've laid out in training. Like
you know what I think he did well as well. Sorry to interrupt you, but I'll forget if I don't say it. I think he did a very good job of closing the range very quickly. I think his footwork was underrated last night. He stood off, and then when he got in the range, his feet got him in so quickly. He had a couple of shots off already before Wood was able to react.
Oh, that's very true. That's a good point. And also, what I liked was after he did his work, he would a lot of time he'd go for a wee walk just to deny Wood a bit of rhythm. He was very deliberately trying, I thought, not to sort of give any display any rhythm to his work. So he was sort of changing the tempo and the pace of the attacks.
Yeah, so it wasn't like we know he's going to do this, then come in constantly. He was mixing it up a bit.
Yeah, definitely. I thought I was impressed by him. I thought it looked like they'd done good work, and he was following a game plan very well. But Yeah, it's sort of on the stoppage again. It's he had his back turned, yes. But I sometimes almost wonder, did Warrington, did he think, had he heard the bell, and was he believing that the round was over and that he didn't actually have to turn round until he did? It's hard to know what actually
I think
happened
he had
there
a
at the
few
end.
bells ringing in his ears by that point.
Yeah, I just would have liked to seen him given the chance. It's World Championship boxing. I think I was just thinking about this before it came on. I think none of it. Some of the guys were talking about. I think it was Smitho was talking about there, the punches that Warrington took after the first punch. The punches that he took on the way down, that were really really accurate on the chin. And of course, none of us like to see guys taking shots that they don't really need to take. But sometimes I fear that we're in danger of losing sight of what the game really is and what it's all about. It's you can't there's a point beyond which you can't water the sport down any further. And if you do, it's not boxing anymore. It's not fighting. It's World Championship boxing. I would have liked to have seen him given at least a chance. Because as you say, I think the point you made, Steve, is fair, and his fitness is a key factor. That fitness allows you to recover quickly. Now, I'm not saying, I know the referee can't have that as his primary consideration when he's deciding in those split moments whether to stop a fight, but I think good referees would silently take that into account. Would find a good referee would sort of have some cognizance of that, of the character and the makeup of the fighter whose fate he's about to decide. And I think it could have become, as I say, I think it could have become even more of a memorable fight in the following rounds. But yeah, it's don't know where he goes from here. I don't really know if I'd want to see a rematch even at 130. Hard to know.
Chris Butler there saying this wasn't a controversial stoppage. I don't really think it was controversial either, but I think there was enough going on that it's well worthy of a debate. I think that would be my...
Yeah.
And also as well, just quickly, the business about... I was pretty much sleeping earlier when they were talking about Saved by the Bell. I don't think that Saved by the Bell is the reason why I think it should have gone on. Like, I know that's factually, it couldn't have been saved by the bell. I was more going on about the referee making the call, but as Dominic said there, the referee's got to weigh all these things up. Two-time former world champion, very experienced, very, very fit, had been winning up to this point. The ref's got to sort of work all that out in his head. But then again, people are very critical of referees other weekends and expect them to do a lot of things in a short space of time and make snap decisions. So I suppose we can't have our cake and eat it. I'm just going to bring Smitho back in because I'm conscious that he's probably going to disappear off at some point. There's the scores on the screen, Smitho. I'm sure you can see them. 58-56 to Warrington, 59-55 times 2. No real complaints over the way the scoring was going at the time of the stoppage?
No, I think that's about right. I mean, everyone would have expected Warrington to be in front. Let's have it right. And although everyone might have expected that, it's not always what you get. I remember even fights that have not gone the distance, you're still shocked when you see the race card, when you see the scorecard, even though you've got the result. So yeah, not much argument with that for me, Steve. I mean, it's a very, very long time since I've sat and scored a fight. I don't really give a damn, but yeah, no surprises there, and actually good for a change. Good to see.
And I'll tell you something else, Mido. I've got it up here. I was going to put it on for Bellew of the week, but I think the Bellew's on us maybe for this one. Nottingham and Leeds under one roof in Sheffield. Saturday's going to be wild. I thought it would be absolute carnage. Both of these fan bases descending on Sheffield. Sheffield Wednesday at home against Huddersfield on the afternoon as well. I tell you what, the atmosphere sounded absolutely class, and they buoyed it up, didn't they, with the promos? You see them on DAZN, they're both wearing the sort of hooligan gear and running around with the flares and all that. It did sound like a class atmosphere, and I didn't hear too many reports of people being hit with chairs or anything, which is always a possibility.
Well, I mean, it might have something to do. The main event actually went off at a reasonable time, a reasonable-ish time.
No, disgusting.
But yeah, awful. Frank will be turning in his grave. But what you could say about these two, though, obviously I can't vouch for Josh Warrington 100%, but he has always had the Leeds connection, the Leeds football connection, always. So, and obviously Lee does as well. So it does appear to be genuine fans rather than the likes of Ebony Bridges taking on a football team within the UK.